Hello, it's the Utopian Capitalist, and this short story is an introduction to understanding utopian capitalism, and I'm taking from a real-world example of the Greek currency crisis of July 2015. And when I turn on CNBC, I see non-stop images as it pertains to Greece of Athens, of people lying in the street crying because they can't withdraw their pension, of grandfathers and grandmothers who are desperate because their life savings is now in jeopardy, of younger people on protest holding signs and banners and shouting and angry and fearful. And I think if we take a step back and consider that none of these people that are harmed by lack of currency, none of these people are going to be leaving the borders of Greece anytime soon. So it's really a domestic problem. It's not an international one, and it can't be solved with international money. What's really at stake here is faith, and whether Greece has it or whether it doesn't. Consider this. What if, during all of this tumultuous circumstance, what if there were a neighborhood in Athens that watched all of this and decided, we aren't going to join the protest. Instead, within our neighborhood, we have 1,000 people. And in this neighborhood, we have people who grow fruits and vegetables. We have people who have dairy cows for milk. We have people who mend and sew clothing. We have people who are good at construction. We have painters. We have people who run a printing press. We have people who are good with electronics. We have other people who are skilled at just about every type of labor you can imagine. And others who provide services. Within our group of 1,000 people in our neighborhood, we have everything that a person needs and might desire for life in Greece. So instead of protesting, we're going to create our own currency. So in this neighborhood, they've decided, okay, we go to the man that has the printing press and we say, we want you to print olive branch currency. And these olive branch currency units, they're going to be the same as the drachma, the same value. And we never want that value to fall. Okay, well, if everyone agrees to always supply a service for the same amount of money, and to have faith that that currency, this olive branch currency, is never going to fall in value, that you're always going to be able to trade it amongst the people in this neighborhood for the services and products and the skills that they possess, that they will share with each other, then that's faith. But it's not faith in currency, it's faith in people. Now, consider this. In addition to setting up this small little societal experiment, they also have decided, we recognize that money not only has a potential for harm when you don't have it, but it has a potential for a great good when you do. When it's always available, when it's endless, as our population is, as our society will be, well then you can do good things with it. In fact, we've decided we don't want to struggle ever again. And we want to do this fairly. So they've decided, okay, it's not just for people who are unemployed or retired, but for everybody, because that's fair. So within our neighborhood of 1,000 people, every person gets 1,000 olive branch currency units every month, because that's what it takes to be struggle-free. Okay, so then you've got people who are delivering milk for your olive branch units, and you've got people who are selling vegetables at a farmer's market, you've got people who are mending clothing, who are painting houses, who are adding on to existing homes with construction. You've got people that are working sanitation for the streets. You've got people who are delivering the newspaper. This little society and its currency are now faithful because they have achieved stability of the value, because everyone agrees we accept this money amongst ourselves, and what we say we're going to do for those amounts of money, we will continue to do. That's faith in each other, because we see what harm happens when you don't have that kind of faith. You have people crying in the streets, you have people protesting, and you have a breakdown in the social agreements of the society. Well, in this little neighborhood, the social agreements are very strong. So now, all of a sudden, just because they've decided to, everyone enjoys a struggle-free life. And they do so with a capitalist understanding that given the money to afford the elements of a fundamental life, they will spend that money on those elements of life, elements of a struggle-free existence. And they do. So you have people who will spend that money completely every month. You have some who will save a little bit. You have others who are setting up businesses and services that people can pay for, who are achieving a profit every month. Whatever it is, everybody's happy because no one struggles. And everyone starts their day with an understanding that whatever challenges they encounter, it will be challenges that they've decided upon, not challenges that will surprise them and reintroduce them to struggle. All because they have decided to share in the abundance that they've created amongst themselves. Now, they'd also like to represent themselves at some point, because there are some services outside of their neighborhood that they would like to manage, like fresh water, for instance, which can be more easily gotten and at a more reasonable consistency outside of the neighborhood. Okay, so they put together a little government, a little council in their neighborhood. And every month, in addition to every person that gets 1,000 olive branch currency units, which amounts to $1 million a month, they also give 50,000 olive branches to their little council, their representatives. And that's the credit they give that council in advance to provide the environment that they all seek to enjoy, like hiring a police force to walk around and make sure there's no trouble, because now the outside of the neighborhood is starting to look at that neighborhood and say, they are really growing in affluence. They have everything they need. And so considerations of crime coming in from the outside are now a burden. There's also the need for the water, as I mentioned, and other services of a city nature that are being cared for by this council. And they get their money in advance on credit. That's a faith that extends not amongst each other, but a faith that extends from the bottom up to the leadership. When it goes from the bottom up, that's a credit to the environment that's created by the work that those particular people achieve. So every month now they're starting to hire from outside of this little community, and the people that come in are now starting to join the collective. Now they have 2,000 people that are a part of this little experiment, and each one of them still gets 1,000 olive branch currency units every month, and the value stays stable. Why? Because they've chosen to keep it stable. And they say so. And everything they do is faithful. There's no graft. There's no embezzlement. Everybody understands each other. And as a result of the understanding, they have faith when they see what can be achieved, and it's achieved over time. And over 6 months, 9 months, that faith translates into trust. And now that currency, that olive branch currency, is trustworthy. They've used it for a town council for their neighborhood. They've used it so that each member of the society in that neighborhood can achieve a struggle-free life. It's faithful. If only they could print 6 billion of those olive branch currency units, they might loan it to Greece. And that's not a joke. When the rest of the country sees how stable that society has made its currency and how much better life is, when people understand each other, have faith in each other, and continue to function with faith in their currency and within the services and work that they do and provide to each other to maintain the life that they all want to share, then that's a better way of life. It's a society that has renewed its faith in itself. And that's really what Greece needs. And it's the basis for understanding utopian capitalism. Because whatever the cost of a struggle-free life, you can afford it. And when you overcome struggle, it frees your society to consider widened perspectives. And that's really what you want. When perspectives narrow, when people start to consider if they'll have food next week, when they begin to consider, well, all of the decades of work I did, all that savings, will it be there next month? When they have to consider, will my way of life go away, and all the work and all of the faith that I've had in my long-term goals, will it all be destroyed tomorrow? Will I be able to withdraw enough money to survive from the bank tomorrow? When perspectives shrink, they tend to stay that way. And people can no longer see outside of the shrunken perspective that they've had to consider in order to stay alive. When faith returns to a society, perspectives widen. And that widening allows for long-term goals that are greater and more socially valuable than others. Because when you have long-term goals, you start to assemble challenges that you meet along the way. You no longer consider struggle. And if the society supports your ability to avoid struggle, then that society improves that much faster. And that is the magic of a domestic currency. And what it could do for Greece, I think, would be amazing if only they had a leadership who would step up to the situation and inspire the faith that's needed so that the people of Greece could remember and consider that they have a long-term future in that country, that they are all a part of that long-term future, and that each of them has an understanding with the others that whatever they do, it will remain faithful and it will last long-term to support each one of their goals and the long-term goals of Greece itself. So consider this understanding of one country's dilemma and a possible solution to it as you continue to read further down on this webpage about utopian capitalism, and use this as a starting point to understand that currency is not only a banking or a financial component, But currency is also part of the structure of a society. When a society agrees to support itself with currency in such a way as I've suggested,